The stellar horizon cut through the darkness of deep space, its massive colony pods rotating slowly to generate gravity for the 10,000 sleeping souls within. Captain Sarah Chen stood at the bridge's observation window, watching the unfamiliar stars of the Carina Arm drift past. After 15 years of cryosleep, they were finally approaching their destination, HD 119,699. Humanity's first attempt at an extrasolar colony. "Captain, we're picking up some unusual readings," Lieutenant Rodriguez called from his sensor station. "Multiple objects decelerating from FTL speeds. Configuration unknown." Sarah felt her pulse quicken. First contact. Humanity had long wondered if they were alone in the galaxy. Now, after centuries of searching, they would finally have their answer. Wake the first response team. Standard first contact protocols. But before she could issue another order, space itself seemed to tear open. Massive ships, their hulls gleaming with an iridescent metal unknown to human science, emerged from what appeared to be artificially generated wormholes. Their designs were organic, almost predatory, with sweeping curves that reminded Sarah of deep-sea creatures from Earth's oceans. Multiple targeting locks detected. Rodriguez shouted, "They're charging weapons." Sarah's training kicked in. Emergency protocols. Wake the security teams. Shields to maximum. The first salvos from the alien vessels tore through the stellar horizon's defensive screens like they weren't even there. The colony ship's civilian-grade shields, designed to protect against meteoroids and radiation, stood no chance against weapons apparently designed to crack capital ships. "They're targeting the cryopods." The horror in Rodriguez's voice matched the ice in Sarah's veins. Those pods held families, children, humanity's hope for expansion among the stars. "Emergency pod ejection, all sections," Sarah commanded. "Better scattered than slaughtered. Transmit the first contact package on all frequencies. Let them know we're not a threat." The massive colony ship began breaking apart by design, its segments separating into smaller vessels as per its emergency protocols. Each section contained enough supplies and power to sustain its sleeping occupants for months. It was a failsafe designed for mechanical failures, not alien attacks, but it was all they had. Sarah watched the tactical display as the pods scattered in all directions, using the minimal engines built into each section. The alien ships seemed momentarily confused by the vessel breaking into smaller pieces, their formation splitting to track multiple targets. "Ma'am, unknown energy signature building in the largest vessel." The alien flagship was charging something massive, its front splitting open like a blooming flower of death. Sarah knew they wouldn't survive a direct hit from whatever that weapon was. "All power to the engines," she ordered. "Set course directly for that weapon aperture. Transmit all sensor data back to Earth. They need to know what's out here." The bridge crew worked with grim determination, knowing what their captain was planning. The stellar horizon's main section, now stripped of its civilian pods, aimed itself at the alien flagship like a massive spear. "It's been an honor," Sarah said quietly, watching the alien weapon charge. "Lieutenant, initiate fusion core overload." The stellar horizon's death was spectacular. Its fusion core detonation caught the alien flagship with its weapon ports open, tearing through its defenses and splitting the massive vessel in two. The explosion created an electromagnetic pulse that temporarily blinded both sides' sensors. When the light faded, the remaining alien ships found themselves tracking over 300 scattered colony pods, each heading in a different direction, each carrying precious human cargo in cryosleep. They had expected to find easy prey. Instead, they had awakened something that would change the galaxy forever. In one of those pods, Technical Officer James Kumar dreamed in cryosleep, unaware that he and his fellow survivors would soon become the seeds of humanity's greatest trial and its greatest triumph. The pod's computer tracked his vital signs as it calculated a course deeper into unknown space, its programming working to keep its precious cargo alive until rescue could arrive. But in the void between the stars, rescue was a relative term, and humanity was about to learn that the galaxy was a far more dangerous place than they had ever imagined. Technical Officer James Kumar awoke to flashing red emergency lights and the pod's automated warning system. Critical power reserves. Atmospheric entry imminent. Please secure all loose items. His mind, still sluggish from cryosleep, struggled to make sense of his surroundings. The pod's small viewport showed an approaching planet, one that definitely wasn't their intended colony world. The surface glowed an angry red through thick clouds, and the gravitational readings on the console were nearly double Earth normal. "Computer, status report," he croaked, his throat dry from hibernation. "Emergency pod 247 sustained damage during dispersal event. 22 colonists in stable cryosleep. Current location: unknown. Entering atmosphere of celestial body designated XO1. Warning: environmental conditions exceed recommended parameters." James checked the readings and felt his stomach drop. The atmosphere was a toxic mix of chlorine and sulfur compounds. Surface temperature averaged around 50 degrees Celsius. Gravity at 1.9 Earth standard. It was exactly the kind of Deathworld that had forced life on Earth to become tough, adaptable, and ruthlessly efficient at survival. The pod shuddered as it hit the upper atmosphere. James strapped himself into the pilot's seat, taking manual control. He'd trained for emergency landings, but never in conditions like these. The pod's heat shields were already at their limit. "Computer, begin emergency revival sequence for Sarah Martinez. I need a xenobiologist awake for this." As the pod descended through layers of caustic clouds, James spotted something that made his blood run cold. The wreckage of alien ships, far more advanced than anything humanity had built, scattered across the planet's surface. Whatever had shot them down was still up there, hiding in the acidic clouds. The landing was rough but survivable. The pod's external sensors reported environment readings that would have been lethal to most known forms of life. But humans hadn't become Earth's dominant species by being fragile. Sarah Martinez joined him in the pod's control room shortly after landing, her eyes widening at the sensor readings. "This is impossible," she muttered. "The database shows signs of artificial structures, but nothing could survive here, except maybe us." "What do you mean?" "Earth is what xenobiologists call a death world, a planet with environmental conditions so harsh that it forces life to become extremely resilient. Most spacefaring species we theorized about would come from much more stable worlds. But this," she gestured at the readings, "this is like Earth during its most hostile periods, and we're adapted to survive those conditions." Over the next few days, they carefully revived the rest of their pod's passengers, a mix of engineers, scientists, and security personnel. Using the pod's limited manufacturing capabilities and their environmental suits, they began exploring their surroundings. The alien wreckage told a story. These ships belonged to various species, all apparently shot down by automated defense systems that still lurked in the violent atmosphere. But what surprised everyone was finding signs that some of the crash survivors had attempted to establish a presence on the surface, and failed. "Look at these structures," Sarah explained, examining an alien habitat through her suit's cameras. "They tried to create completely sealed environments, totally separated from the planet's conditions. When their systems failed, they had no backup plan. They couldn't adapt." James watched as their own team worked to reinforce their pod, using local materials and human ingenuity to create a hybrid shelter that could withstand the planet's fury. They weren't trying to shut out the environment. They were working with it, using the same principles that had helped humanity survive Earth's most extreme conditions. "We're getting strange readings from the northern continent," one of the engineers reported. "Something's still active up there." Before they could investigate further, their sensors detected new ships entering the atmosphere, the same design as those that had attacked the stellar horizon. But this time, humanity wasn't defenseless. This time, they were on familiar ground, a death world just like the one that had forged their species. "They're going to learn something today," James said, watching the alien ships descend through the toxic clouds. They're going to learn why humans don't just survive on Deathworlds. We thrive on them. The team quickly moved to their prepared positions, using the hostile environment itself as a weapon. They had studied the wreckage, learned its weaknesses. Now they would show their attackers why attacking a Deathworlder species had been their greatest mistake. The battle for X01 was about to begin, and humanity was finally ready to demonstrate why they had become the apex predators of Earth. The galaxy was about to learn that humans weren't just another spacefaring species. They were survivors, adapters, and, when necessary, warriors born from one of the universe's most unforgiving crucibles. And somewhere in the toxic clouds above, more escape pods from the stellar horizon were falling, bringing more humans to this harsh new world. The invasion force had no idea they were about to face an enemy that considered their hellish planet to be just another Tuesday back home. The alien ship crashed through X01's toxic atmosphere, its shields failing against the combination of environmental hazards and carefully placed human traps. But instead of the expected hostile force, James and his team found something entirely different inside the damaged vessel. "They're refugees," Sarah announced, examining the ship's occupants through her protective gear. The aliens were tall, willowy beings with iridescent skin that seemed to shift colors with their emotions. Currently, they all showed patterns of deep blue, fear, as the team would later learn. "We're running from the hegemony," their translator explained once communications were established. The alien identified herself as Zaraven, a member of the Lysian species. "Like you, we refuse to submit to their protection." The Lysians were a peaceful race of scientists and artists who had developed remarkable biological technology. The hegemony, the force that had attacked the stellar horizon, had demanded they turn over their research. When they refused, their worlds were blockaded. "But you found a way around their blockade," James observed, impressed. The Lysian ship used biological components that could adapt to different conditions, explaining how they'd survived longer in X01's atmosphere than other alien vessels. "We thought we could hide here." Zaraven's skin rippled with green bands of frustration. No hegemony patrol would expect anyone to survive on such a hostile world. "But our systems are failing. We didn't evolve to handle these conditions like your species did." Over the following weeks, an unprecedented partnership formed. The humans helped the Lysians modify their biological technology to withstand X01's harsh environment, while the Lysians shared their knowledge of the galaxy and its politics. "The hegemony fears species they can't control," Zaraven explained during one working session. She watched in fascination as human engineers integrated Lysian biocircuits with their own mechanical systems. "They especially fear those who can adapt and grow stronger." "Then they're really going to hate what we're building here," James replied, examining the hybrid defense system they'd created. Human durability combined with Lysian biological technology had produced something entirely new, weapons and shields that could actually grow stronger when exposed to hostile conditions. Their settlement expanded, incorporating both human and Lysian design elements. More escape pods from the stellar horizon found their way to them, guided by beacons they'd placed in the upper atmosphere. Each new arrival brought more skills, more ideas, and more determination to survive. But it was Sarah who made the most crucial discovery. Studying the interaction between human and Lysian biology, she found something extraordinary. "Our adaptability isn't just physical," she explained to a gathered crowd of both species. "Our very cells can learn from theirs, and vice versa. We're not just cooperating, we're evolving together." The implications were staggering. Lysian biological technology, combined with human adaptability, could revolutionize both species' capabilities. They began developing new hybrid technologies, environmental suits that could heal themselves, weapons that adapted to their targets, ships that could withstand conditions that would destroy conventional vessels. Their numbers grew as more refugees found their way to X01. The hegemony had made many enemies, and word spread through hidden channels about a place where the persecuted could find sanctuary, a place protected by the most unlikely alliance, Deathworlders and their new allies. We're picking up multiple signatures entering the system, a human sensor operator announced one day. Hegemony patrol fleet, bigger than anything we've seen before. But instead of fear, the combined settlement felt anticipation. They had spent months preparing, building their strength, combining the best of both their species. The hegemony was about to learn that they had created something unprecedented, an alliance that was greater than the sum of its parts. "Let them come," James said, standing beside Zara Venn as they watched their hybrid defense systems power up. Her skin shimmered with the orange patterns of determination, matching the fierce glint in his eyes. They thought this death world would be our prison. Instead, it's become our fortress. In the toxic skies above, the first hegemony ships began their descent, unaware that they were about to face an enemy unlike anything they had encountered before. The battle for survival was about to become a fight for freedom, and humanity had found its place in the galaxy, not as conquerors or subjects, but as allies to those who dared to resist. The hegemony fleet's arrival in XO1's atmosphere was met not with panic, but with calculated precision. James stood in the newly constructed command center, a marvel of human and Lysian engineering, watching as their defensive strategy unfolded. Guerrilla warfare in 3 dimensions, he explained to Zara Venn, who observed the tactical displays with her skin shifting through analytical patterns of silver and gold. On Earth, smaller forces learned to defeat larger ones by using the environment as a weapon. Here, we have an entire planet's worth of hostile conditions to work with. The first wave of hegemony ships descended through the caustic clouds, their shields already straining against the atmospheric conditions. They never saw the hybrid weapons platforms, disguised as chunks of wreckage, until it was too late. Biological targeting systems, enhanced by human tactical algorithms, picked off the lead vessels with devastating accuracy. "Scatter pattern Delta," James commanded. Their defense fleet, a bizarre but effective mixture of modified escape pods and Lysian bioships, broke formation exactly as the hegemony launched their counterattack. The enemy's plasma bolts passed through empty space as their targets seemed to dissolve into the toxic atmosphere. Sarah's voice came over the comm system from her research lab. "The new biomechanical camouflage is working perfectly. Their sensors can't distinguish our ships from the atmospheric disturbances." This was human innovation at its finest, taking the Lysian's biological technology and applying it in ways its creators had never imagined. While the Lysians had originally developed their biotech for peaceful scientific research, humans immediately sought its military potential when combined with Earth combat tactics. "Second wave incoming," a sensor operator announced. "They're attempting to establish a high-altitude perimeter." James smiled grimly. "Initiate Operation Thunderstorm." This was their masterstroke. Massive atmospheric processors, built from salvaged hegemony technology and enhanced with Lysian bioengineering. At James's command, they began altering the planet's already volatile weather patterns. "They'll be back," James said quietly, "with bigger ships and better weapons." He turned to face the assembled command crew, humans, Lysians, and now Drachnid representatives joining via hologram. "But next time, we'll be ready, not just to defend this world, but to take the fight to them." In the labs below the command center, human scientists worked alongside Lysian researchers, integrating their discoveries with Drachnid engineering principles. They weren't just combining technologies anymore. They were creating entirely new fields of science, new ways of thinking about what was possible. The galaxy was changing, and the catalyst was this unlikely alliance born in the toxic clouds of a death world. The hegemony had sought to maintain control by keeping species separate and dependent. Instead, they had forced together the very combination that would ultimately lead to their downfall. As the adrenaline of battle faded, James looked out over the settlement they'd built, a place where multiple species had learned not just to survive together, but to thrive. "You know," he said to Zara Venn, "back on Earth, some of our greatest achievements came from people working together against impossible odds. Her skin rippled with colors of agreement and determination. Perhaps that is what the hegemony fears most, not just our combined strength, but what we might achieve together in peace. Above them, XO1's toxic clouds churned with artificial storms, hiding their sanctuary from prying eyes. But soon, very soon, they would emerge from those clouds not as refugees, but as the front line of a revolution that would reshape the galaxy. 1 year after the first battle of XO1, the combined fleet emerged from the toxic atmosphere. What had started as a handful of survivors had grown into an armada unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. James stood on the bridge of the Defiance, their flagship that represented the pinnacle of their combined technologies. The ship itself was a testament to their alliance, a drachnid hull enhanced with Lysian biological systems and human-designed adaptive capabilities. Its very structure could react to damage, learn from attacks, and evolve during combat. The rest of their fleet was equally impressive, each vessel combining the strengths of all three species. Hegemony Defense Fleet detected at coordinates Mark 7, reported a drachnid tactical officer. They're moving to intercept. This wasn't a surprise. After their defeat at XO1, the Hegemony had fortified their core systems, believing they could wait out any resistance. They hadn't counted on humans' determination to take the fight to them, or the effectiveness of their ally technologies. All ships, execute Operation Phoenix, James commanded. Sarah and Zara Venn had named it, finding humor in the notion of humanity literally rising from the ashes of their destroyed colony ship to challenge their attackers. The fleet split into 3 groups, each demonstrating the unique strengths of their alliance. The drachnid heavy vessels provided the backbone, their massive guns modified with Lysian biotech to adapt to enemy shield frequencies. Lysian ships darted between them, their organic hulls now enhanced with human-designed combat systems. And the human vessels, evolved far beyond their original escape pod origins, implemented the unpredictable tactics that had become their trademark. They're responding exactly as predicted, Zara Venn observed from her station, her skin flickering with tactical patterns. The Hegemony cannot adapt their doctrine. They only know how to escalate force. The battle that followed would be studied by military historians for centuries to come. The Hegemony's numerical superiority meant nothing against an enemy that could adapt faster than they could respond. Their standardized tactics were useless against an opponent that seemed to rewrite the rules of engagement with every maneuver. But the true turning point came when Sarah's team activated their masterstroke, a propagating wave of hybrid technology that turned the Hegemony's own automated defense systems against them. It was the ultimate expression of their combined knowledge. Human tactical thinking, Lysian biological programming, and drachnid engineering precision. Broadcasting on all frequencies, James announced as the Hegemony fleet fell into disarray. To all species under Hegemony control, we are the alliance of free worlds. We offer you a choice, not submission, not control, but true cooperation. Look at what we've achieved together. This is only the beginning. The response was beyond anything they had hoped for. Across Hegemony space, subjugated species began rising up. The careful balance of power the Hegemony had maintained through isolation and fear crumbled in the face of what real cooperation could achieve. Hours later, as the last Hegemony dreadnought surrendered, James stood with Sarah and Zara Venn, watching the start of a new era. "You know," Sarah said, "when we left Earth, we thought we were going to build a colony. Instead, we helped build something much bigger. A new way of thinking." Zara Venn agreed, her skin showing patterns never before seen in her species, a new emotion that could only be described as hope for the future. Not just coexistence, but true symbiosis between species. The aftermath of the battle brought rapid changes to the galaxy. The Alliance of Free Worlds, headquartered on the now transformed XO1, became a beacon for cooperation and innovation. The planet that had once been a harsh prison became a symbol of how adversity could forge the strongest bonds. Years later, when asked about the key to their success, James would always give the same answer. The hegemony thought they could keep species apart, control them through isolation. But they never understood that diversity isn't a weakness. It's the greatest strength any civilization can have. Humanity didn't survive and thrive on Earth by being stronger or smarter than everything else. We did it by learning, adapting, and working together. The original survivors of the stellar horizon had set out to establish humanity's first extrasolar colony. Instead, they had helped forge humanity's greatest legacy. A galaxy where different species didn't just tolerate each other, but celebrated their differences and built on each other's strengths. And on Earth, when the story reached them, humanity looked to the stars with new eyes. They had feared what they might find in the galaxy, but instead, they had found their true calling, not as conquerors or subjects, but as bridges between worlds, catalysts for change, and proof that the harshest challenges could bring out the very best in all species. The death world that had forged humanity's resilience had ultimately helped forge a new future for all sentient life. And somewhere in the vast expanse of space, the next great collaboration was waiting to begin.